I found the game in a place that didn't make sense. It was the kind of store you don't notice unless you're already lost. One of those narrow, dusty shops wedged between two buildings that looked like they hadn't been updated since the early 90s. The sign outside flickered weakly. Half the letters burnt out, so all it really said was G-me-s. I probably would have walked right past it if my phone hadn't died and forced me to wander aimlessly while looking for a place to kill time. Inside, the air smelled like old plastic and something faintly metallic. Rows of shelves leaned slightly, stacked with cartridges, discs, and consoles from every generation you could think of. Some of them I recognized. Others, not so much. There were labels I'd never seen, brands that didn't exist anymore, or maybe never did. The man behind the counter didn't look up when I walked in. He just sat there, hunched over something I couldn't quite see, like he was listening more than watching. "Looking for anything specific?" he asked, his voice dry and flat. "Just browsing," I said. That was true. I wasn't really into retro games or collecting or anything like that. I just needed to pass time until my phone charged somewhere. But as I walked deeper into the store, I started noticing something strange. There were no prices. Not on the shelves, not on the boxes, not even faded stickers. Everything just sat there, waiting. I picked up a few cartridges out of curiosity. Old titles mostly, some scratched, some in surprisingly good condition. But then I saw it. It was tucked away on the bottom shelf, half hidden behind a stack of more recognizable games. A plain black case, no artwork, no branding, just a small white label with faded text. Home System Deno, do not distribute. I don't know why it caught my attention. Maybe it was because everything else in the store felt like it belonged somewhere, like it had a history. It looked like it had slipped through the cracks somehow. I brought it up to the counter. "How much for this?" The man finally looked at me. For a second, I thought he was going to say no, like I wasn't supposed to touch it, let alone buy it. His eyes lingered on the case longer than necessary, and something about his expression shifted. Subtle, but noticeable. "You sure you want that one?" he asked. It wasn't a warning, not exactly. More like curiosity. "Yeah," I said. "Why?" He shrugged slowly. "No reason, just don't get many people asking about that one." "So how much?" He stared at me for another second, then said, "Take it." "Take it? No charge." I frowned. "Seriously?" He nodded once, already looking away again like the conversation was over. "Just don't bring it back." I laughed a little at that, assuming it was some weird attempt at humor. "Okay." But he didn't laugh. I should have left it there. I know that now, but at the time, it just felt like I'd gotten lucky. A free game, something unusual, maybe even rare. I figured I'd take it home, try it out, and if it didn't work, no big deal. Looking back, that was probably the last normal thought I had about it. The case felt heavier than it should have. Not by much, just enough to notice when I dropped it into my backpack. Like there was something else inside besides the disc. I almost opened it right there. But something about the way the shop suddenly felt quieter made me stop. Even the hum of the lights seemed lower. I turned back toward the counter, thinking about asking the man one more question. Where it came from, maybe, or what system it was for. But he was gone. The chair behind the counter was empty. I stood there for a moment, waiting, expecting him to come back from a back room or something. But nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. It was like the store had forgotten him. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I don't know why that bothered me as much as it did. People step away all the time. It shouldn't have felt wrong. But it did. I didn't stay long after that. I left the store with the game in my bag and stepped back out into the street. And just like that, everything felt normal again. Noise, traffic, people walking past like nothing had happened. I turned around to look at the shop one more time. The sign wasn't flickering anymore. In fact, it looked completely intact. Bright, clear, games. I blinked, staring at it, trying to figure out if I'd just misread it earlier. Maybe I had. Maybe my brain had filled in the gaps. That made more sense. It had to. I told myself that as I walked away, pushing the unease down and focusing on something simple. Getting home, plugging in my console, and seeing what this weird little game actually was. I didn't realize then that the game wasn't the only thing I'd taken with me, and whatever was inside it, it had already started. I didn't try the game right away. That's the part that still bothers me, because if I had just put it in the console the moment I got home, maybe I would have noticed something sooner. Maybe I would have realized what it was before things started changing around me. But instead, I did what anyone does when they think they've got time. I set it aside. My apartment was quiet when I got back. Too quiet, actually. I live alone, so silence isn't unusual, but this felt heavier, like the air hadn't moved since I left. I dropped my backpack on the couch and went straight to the kitchen, telling myself I'd grab something to eat first, maybe scroll on my phone for a bit, then check out the game later. Except my phone was still dead. I plugged it in and watched the screen flicker to life, that familiar charging icon appearing like everything was normal. No missed calls, no messages, just the same empty lock screen I'd left earlier. I remember thinking that was weird. Not alarming, just odd. I'd been out longer than I thought. Usually there's at least something, a notification, an update, anything. But there was nothing. I shrugged it off and went back to the living room. The backpack was still where I dropped it, but something about it felt off. It looked fuller. Not by much, just slightly more stretched at the seams than I remembered. I told myself I was imagining things. I unzipped it anyway. The game case was right on top, exactly where I'd put it. But when I picked it up, that same strange weight was there again. Subtle, but undeniable. Like something inside shifted just a little when I tilted it. I frowned and turned it over in my hands. No cracks, no obvious damage. Just that same plain black surface and the faded white label. Home System Demo. Do not distribute. I pressed my thumb against the edge and opened it. Inside was a disc. That part was normal. What wasn't normal was the fact that there was no artwork on it. No title, no logo. Just a dull gray surface with a thin ring of black around the center, like it had been burned instead of pressed. And tucked beneath the plastic clips was something else. A piece of paper. Folded once, like someone had placed it there deliberately. I hesitated before taking it out. I don't know why. It was just paper. But there was this brief moment, this tiny, almost unnoticeable hesitation, where something in my head told me not to touch it. I ignored that feeling. Of course I did. I unfolded the paper slowly. At first, it looked blank, just an off-white sheet with slightly yellowed edges. But when I tilted it toward the light, faint text began to show through, like it had been written in something that didn't want to be seen right away. It only took a second for the words to become clear. Do not play alone. I stared at it, waiting for something else to appear. More instructions, a joke, anything. But that was it. Just those 4 words. I laughed under my breath, shaking my head. Okay, weird marketing. That's what I told myself. Some kind of experimental demo. Maybe unfinished. Maybe someone trying to be edgy or mysterious. It worked, I guess. Because instead of putting it back, I set everything down on the coffee table and turned on my console. It took longer than usual to boot up. At least it felt like it did. The startup screen lingered a little too long, the loading icon spinning just enough times to make me notice. But eventually, the home screen appeared and everything looked normal again. I opened the disc tray and slid the game in. For a second, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered. Not like a glitch, not like a loose cable or bad connection. It was too clean for that, too intentional. The console recognized the disc almost immediately after, but the title that appeared on the screen wasn't what I expected. There was no name, just a blank icon. No image, no description, just an empty space where a game should be. I hovered over it, waiting for something to load. Nothing did. "That's not a good sign," I muttered. Still, I pressed start. The screen went black. Not the usual loading black either. There was no spinner, no sound, no indication that anything was happening at all. Just silence. I almost ejected the disc right then. Something about that silence felt wrong. Like the console wasn't loading the game, it was waiting for something else. But before I could do anything, the screen changed. A single line of text appeared in the center. White letters on a black background. "You should have brought someone." My stomach dropped. That wasn't part of any game I'd ever seen. It didn't feel like a tutorial message. It didn't feel like flavor text. It felt directed at me. I leaned back slightly, staring at the screen, trying to convince myself it was just part of the experience. Some kind of meta-horror thing. Breaking the fourth wall. Games do that sometimes. But then the text flickered, and for a split second, less than a blink, I saw something behind it. A shape. Not detailed enough to understand, but definitely there, watching. The text disappeared. The screen went black again. Then slowly, the game began. No logo, no intro, just a dimly lit room. First-person perspective. The kind of grainy, low-resolution graphics that mimic old hardware limitations. But something about it felt too precise. Like it wasn't just copying the style, it was recreating something real. The room was small, bare walls, one door, and in the corner, barely visible in the shadows, something moved. I froze. My controller felt heavier in my hands. I hadn't even pressed anything yet. The game was moving on its own, slowly, turning toward the corner, toward whatever was there. "Nope," I whispered, instinctively reaching for the power button. But before I could press it, the screen flickered again, and the same message came back. "Don't turn away." This time, it wasn't centered. It was closer, closer than it should have been. Like it wasn't part of the screen anymore, like it was inside the room. I didn't press the power button. I didn't move at all, because something in that corner had started to stand up. I didn't understand what I was looking at first. That's the part I keep coming back to, the delay. The moment where your brain refuses to process something because it doesn't fit into anything familiar. The shape in the corner wasn't clear, not fully. It was like the game itself didn't want to render it properly. Every time it shifted, the pixels seemed to smear, like they were trying to hide the details instead of reveal them. But I knew it was there. And more importantly, I knew it was standing up. The movement was slow, deliberate. Not like an animation loop, not like anything programmed. It felt aware, like it understood that I was watching it, and it was taking its time because of that. I still hadn't touched the controller. The camera in the game kept turning on its own, inching closer to the corner, forcing the perspective toward whatever was rising out of the shadows. The room itself didn't change. Same walls, same door, same dim lighting. But the closer the view got, the more the darkness seemed to thicken around that corner. Like it wasn't just shadow, like it had weight. I finally moved. Not in the game, me in real life. I shifted back on the couch, my grip tightening on the controller without thinking. My thumb hovered over the power button again, but something stopped me. Not fear exactly, more like a pressure in the back of my mind. A quiet insistence that if I shut it off now, something worse would happen. I don't know where that thought came from, but it didn't feel like mine. On the screen, the figure finished standing. For a moment, everything went still. The camera stopped moving. The room went silent. Even the faint ambient hum I hadn't noticed before seemed to disappear completely. Then the figure took a step forward. The sound was wrong. It wasn't footsteps. It wasn't anything that matched the movement. It sounded wet, soft, like something peeling away from a surface. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe. "It's just a game," I said out loud. My voice sounded too loud in the apartment. The figure took another step. Closer now. Still distorted, still unclear, but I could make out more of its shape with each movement. It was tall. Too tall for the room, actually. Its head seemed to tilt at an angle that didn't match the rest of its body, like it was adjusting itself to fit inside the space. And its arms, they hung too low. Long, thin, stretching almost to the floor. I finally pressed a button on the controller. Nothing happened. I pressed another. Still nothing. The game wasn't responding. The figure kept moving. Step. That wet, dragging sound again. Step. Closer. My heart was pounding now, loud enough that I could hear it in my ears. I glanced down at the controller, pressing every input I could think of, but the screen didn't react at all. I wasn't playing anymore. I was just watching. The figure stopped about halfway across the room. Its head turned slightly. And even though I still couldn't see a face, couldn't see any real features at all, I knew it was looking directly at me. Not the character, me. The screen flickered, just for a second, and when it came back, something had changed. The room was the same, the figure was the same, but there was something new on the wall behind it. Words, faint at first, like they were bleeding through the texture, then clearer. You brought it home. I felt a cold rush move through me. No, I said immediately, shaking my head. No, that's not. The words shifted, rearranged. It followed you. I stood up so fast, I almost dropped the controller. That was it. I was done. Whatever this was, whatever kind of game or messed up experiment it turned out to be, I wasn't sticking around to find out. I reached for the console and hit the power button. The screen went black. For a second I felt relief, the kind that hits you when something ends, and you realize you're safe again. But then the screen came back on. Not with the game, not with the console interface, just black. And in the center, text. You can't close it. My stomach dropped. I pressed the power button again, held it this time. The console didn't respond. The light on the front stayed solid. No flicker, no shutdown sequence, nothing. Behind me, something creaked. I froze. Slowly, very slowly, I turned my head toward the sound. The hallway, dark, empty. But the door at the end, the one leading to my bedroom, was open. I was sure I'd closed it earlier. I always close it. I stared at it, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. Okay, I whispered, trying to steady my breathing. Okay, this is just coincidence, just nerves. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Because I could still hear something, faint, almost too quiet to notice. That same sound from the game, wet, dragging, coming from somewhere deeper in the apartment. I turned back to the TV. The screen had changed again. The room from the game was gone. Now it was showing something else. A hallway, my hallway. Same angle, same lighting, same open door at the end. I took a step back. No, 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 no. The image on the screen shifted slightly, like a camera adjusting its focus. And then I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, just inside the doorway, something was standing there. Tall, still, watching. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe, because the thing on the screen was standing exactly where the door was in real life. And slowly, so slowly, I almost didn't notice at first. The door in my apartment began to move. Not closing, not opening further, just shifting, like something behind it had touched it, and then stopped. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I just stood there, staring at the screen, then at the hallway, then back again, trying to convince myself they didn't match, that this wasn't happening. But they did match. Perfectly. Every detail, every shadow. And then the text came back. This time, it wasn't on the screen. It was on the wall, right next to the TV. Faint at first, then clearer. Don't look away. I didn't. I couldn't. because the moment I realized what that meant, something in the hallway shifted again. And this time, it took a step forward. I didn't remember deciding to move. 1 second I was standing there, locked in place, staring between the screen and the hallway. And the next, I was backing away, slow and unsteady, like my body had finally chosen survival over shock. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run, to get out of the apartment, to put as much distance between me and whatever this was as possible. But my eyes wouldn't leave it. The thing in the hallway moved again. Not fast, not chasing, just another slow, deliberate step forward, like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. The version of it on the screen mirrored the movement perfectly. No delay, no distortion, just exact. My throat felt dry, tight, like I'd forgotten how to swallow. "Okay," I whispered, more to myself than anything. "Okay, just leave." Simple. That was the plan. I didn't need to understand it, I didn't need to fix it. I just needed to leave. I reached blindly for my keys on the table by the door, never taking my eyes off the hallway. My fingers brushed the surface once, twice, then finally closed around them. The small, familiar weight grounded me just enough to move. One step back, then another. The thing in the hallway stopped, its head tilted slightly, and for the first time, I saw its face. Not clearly, not fully, but enough. Enough to understand that it didn't have one. Or maybe it had too many. The surface where a face should have been seemed to shift, like it couldn't settle on a shape. Features pressed outward, and then disappeared again, like something beneath a thin layer of skin trying to form itself and failing. My stomach turned. I forced myself to look away, just for a second, just long enough to reach the door. The moment I did, the TV crackled behind me. A sharp burst of static, and then a sound. Not from the game, not from the hallway, from right behind me. Wet, dragging, closer than it had been before. I spun around, too fast. My vision blurred for a second, and when it cleared, the hallway was empty, completely empty. The door at the end was still open, but there was nothing inside it now. Nothing standing there, nothing watching. My chest heaved as I tried to process it. No, that's not. I turned back to the TV. The screen still showed the hallway, but the thing was gone there too. For a moment, everything was still, silent, like it had all just stopped. Then the screen flickered, and the perspective changed. Not the hallway anymore, the living room, my living room, from an angle I couldn't place, like a camera set somewhere high, tilted down. And there I was, standing near the door, keys in hand, looking terrified. A cold, sinking feeling spread through me, because I knew what that meant. Slowly, very slowly, I turned my head, not toward the hallway this time, up, toward the ceiling, just the same blank surface it had always been. But the angle on the screen didn't lie. Something was watching me from above. The text appeared again. This time, it didn't fade in, it snapped into place. You looked away. The lights in the apartment flickered, once, twice, then went out. Total darkness. I froze. Every muscle locked, every breath shallow and controlled. I couldn't see anything. Not the hallway, not the TV, not even my own hands in front of my face. But I could hear it. Closer now, right in front of me. That same wet dragging sound, followed by something else. Breathing, slow, uneven, like it wasn't used to the motion. My grip tightened around the keys. I didn't know what I thought I could do with them. Fight it? Unlock something? It didn't matter. It was something. The breathing got louder, closer, right at face level. I could feel it now, cold air brushing against my skin. I squeezed my eyes shut. Not that it made a difference in the dark. but it felt safer. "Please," I whispered. I don't know who I was talking to. Maybe it, maybe anything that might be listening. "Please, just stop." For a second, nothing happened. The breathing stopped, the dragging sound stopped, the air went still. And I thought, maybe it worked. Then, something touched my face. Lightly. Just the tips of something long and thin, brushing across my cheek like it was testing the shape of me. I flinched, stumbling backward, nearly dropping the keys. The lights snapped back on. I blinked hard, my eyes burning as they adjusted. The apartment was empty. Completely empty. No figure, no movement, nothing. The TV was off, the console was off, like none of it had ever been on in the first place. I stood there, shaking, trying to make sense of it, trying to convince myself it was over, that it had ended. But then I saw it, the game case, still sitting on the coffee table, exactly where I'd left it. Slowly, cautiously, I stepped closer. Every instinct told me to leave it, to walk out the door and never come back. But something else, something quieter, deeper, pulled me toward it. I reached out and picked it up. It felt heavier than before. I opened it. The disc was gone. In its place was a key. Old, metal, cold to the touch. I stared at it, my mind racing, because I already knew it wasn't there before. And as I held it in my hand, trying to understand what it meant, I heard it, from somewhere behind me, soft, close, almost amused, a whisper.